The day Nia Carter pretended not to know her own mother was the day she finally understood what it meant to lose everything. Her mother had traveled 6 hours by bus to surprise her at the most prestigious boarding school in the country. She arrived wearing the same faded blue uniform she wore to work every day. In her hands was a small paper bag filled with Nia's favorite homemade food. She had come because it was parents' visiting day, and because she misses her daughter, the daughter she had sacrificed everything for. But when Nia saw her mother standing at the entrance of the school, surrounded by students whose parents had arrived in luxury cars, Nia made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Her mother smiled and called her name. Nia. Nia heard her. She knew exactly who was standing there. But when her wealthy classmates turned to look at the woman in the work uniform, Nia lowered her eyes. And with a voice that barely sounded like her own, she said,
"I'm sorry."
"I think you have the wrong person." Her mother's smile disappeared, and for a moment, neither of them moved. Then her mother looked into the eyes of the daughter she had spent 16 years protecting, and quietly she said, "Oh,
I'm sorry."
Then she turned around and walked away. Nia watched her disappear through the school gates. And that was the moment everything she had worked so hard to become began to fall apart. Because Nia had spent her entire life dreaming of leaving home. She just never imagined that one day she would be ashamed of the person who helped her get there. Three months earlier, Nia Carter had been living in a small apartment with her mother in a neighborhood where everybody knew everybody. It wasn't a beautiful place. The walls were old. The kitchen was tiny. And when it rained heavily, water sometimes found its way through the ceiling. But it was home. Nia's mother, Denise, had raised her alone. She worked long hours as a nursing assistant at a rehabilitation center, often leaving the apartment before sunrise and returning when Nia was already asleep. She was tired almost all the time, but she never complained. Not to Nia. Not once. Because Denise had made herself a promise. Her daughter would have opportunities she never had. Nia was brilliant. Everyone knew it. Her teachers had been telling her for years that she was different. Not better than everyone else. Just determined. She was the kind of student who stayed after class to ask questions. The kind who borrowed books because her family couldn't afford to buy them. The kind who studied at the kitchen table while her mother worked night shifts in the next room. Nia had one dream. She wanted to become a doctor. And she knew exactly what stood between her and that dream. Money. Then, during her junior year of high school, something happened that changed her life. Nia received a letter. It was from Hawthorne Academy, one of the most prestigious boarding schools in the United States. The school accepted students from all over the country. Its graduates went on to attend some of the best universities in the world. And the tuition was more than Denise earned in several years. But Hawthorne Academy had a scholarship program for exceptional students from families who couldn't afford the cost. Nia had applied months earlier. She had almost forgotten about it. Until the letter arrived. Her hands trembled as she opened it. She read the first sentence. Then she stopped. She read it again. And again. "Dear Miss Carter, we are pleased to inform you that you have been selected as a recipient of the Hawthorne Academy Full Residential Scholarship." Nia stared at the words. Then she screamed. "Mom!" Denise rushed into the room. "What happened?" Nia couldn't speak. She simply handed her the letter. Denise read it, and for several seconds, she stood completely still. Then she covered her mouth. "Oh my God." Nia started crying. "So, I'm going?" Denise looked at her daughter and smiled. "You're going." They hugged each other in the middle of that tiny apartment. They cried. They laughed. They called relatives. They celebrated. That night, Denise cooked everything Nia loved. There wasn't much money in the house, but somehow, Denise made the night feel like a celebration. Nia couldn't stop talking about Hawthorne Academy. She talked about the beautiful campus, the huge library, the science laboratories, the dormitories, the students she would meet. She talked about how different her life was going to be, and Denise listened
Proudly.
but later that night, when Nia had gone to bed, Denise sat alone at the kitchen table. She looked at the scholarship letter. Then she looked at the bills beside it. The scholarship covered Nia's tuition, room, and meals. But there were still expenses. Transportation, school supplies,
Clothes.
personal items, the things nobody talked about. Denise knew what she had to do. She picked up her phone and called her supervisor. I can take the extra shifts. There was a pause. Then Denise nodded.
Yes.
Every weekend if you need me. She hung up and went to bed. She never told Nia. The day Nia left for Hawthorne Academy came faster than either of them expected. Denise helped her pack. They folded clothes together. They argued about how many pairs of shoes Nia needed. They laughed.
They cried.
And when it was finally time to leave, Denise stood at the door of their apartment and looked at her daughter. Nia was wearing her new school uniform. She had never looked so grown. Denise reached out and fixed the collar. Then she said something Nia would remember years later. Don't ever be ashamed of where you came from, baby. Nia smiled. I won't. Denise held her face. Promise me. I promise. Then Nia left. The first week at Hawthorne Academy was overwhelming. The school looked like something from a movie. The buildings were enormous. The lawns were perfectly maintained. There was a dining hall that looked like a restaurant. The students spoke about vacations in places Nia had only seen on television. One girl casually mentioned that her family had a house in France. Another student complained that her parents had sent her the wrong car. Nia listened. She smiled. And slowly, she began to realize something. She was different. Not because she was less intelligent. Not because she didn't belong. But because she had come from a completely different world. On her first day in the dormitory, Nia met her roommate. Her name was Claire Whitmore. Claire was white, tall, blonde, and effortlessly confident. Her family was wealthy. Very wealthy. But Claire wasn't arrogant. In fact, she was the first person at Hawthorne to make Nia feel comfortable. You're Nia, right?
Yeah. I'm Claire.
I know. Claire laughed. You know me? Everybody knows you. That's unfortunate. Nia laughed.
It was the first time she had smiled that day.
And just like that, something began. The two girls became friends. At first, they were completely different. Claire loved parties. Nia loved studying. Claire could talk for hours. Nia preferred listening. Claire had grown up surrounded by people. Nia had grown up with just her mother. But somehow it worked. They became inseparable. They ate together, studied together, walked to class together. They stayed awake late at night talking about their dreams. Nia told Claire she wanted to become a doctor. Claire said she wanted to become a lawyer. They made plans. They promised each other that they would attend the same university. And slowly, Nia stopped feeling like an outsider. But something else was happening. Something Nia didn't notice at first. She was changing. It started with small things. The first time her mother called while Claire was in the room, Nia ignored the phone. Claire looked at her. Your mom?
Yeah.
Why didn't you answer? Nia shrugged. I'll call her later. But she didn't. The next day, Denise called again. Nia answered. Mom.
Frank.
How are you?
I fine.
Are you eating? Yes. Are you sleeping? Mom. Okay. I'm just asking. Nia smiled. But Claire was sitting across the room, and Nia suddenly felt embarrassed. Embarrassed by the questions. Embarrassed by the way her mother spoke. Embarrassed by the fact that her mother didn't sound like the mothers of the girls at Hawthorne. So Nia ended the call quickly. I have to go, Mom. Okay, sweetheart. I love you. Nia hesitated. I love you too. Then she hung up. Claire looked at her. Your mom sounds nice. She is. She must miss you. Nia looked away. Probably. And that was the beginning. The beginning of Nia creating a distance between herself and the woman who had spent her entire life trying to bring her closer to her dreams. As the months passed, Nia learned more about the lives of the people around her. She discovered that some of her classmates had private tutors. Some had personal drivers. Some had parents who were famous. And some had never experienced the fear of wondering whether there would be enough money to pay the rent. Nia never told anyone about the apartment. She never told them that her mother worked night shifts. She never told them that sometimes they had to choose which bills to pay first. She never told them that she had received her scholarship because her family couldn't afford the school. Instead, she started telling small lies. When someone asked what her mother did, Nia said, "She's in healthcare." It was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. When someone asked where she lived, Nia gave the name of the neighborhood without mentioning the apartment. When someone asked about her father, she simply said, "He's not around." She began to feel that every detail about her old life was something she needed to hide. Then one afternoon, something happened. Claire and Nia were sitting in the dining hall with a group of students. One of them asked Nia, "So, what do your parents do?" Nia froze. Before she could answer, Claire spoke. "Her mom works in healthcare." Nia looked at Claire. Claire smiled. Nia smiled back. But inside, something hurt. Because Claire had just said it for her. And Nia suddenly realized that she had become afraid of the truth. That night, Denise called. Nia was sitting with Claire. She looked at the screen. "Are you going to answer?" Nia shook her head. "I'll call her later." Claire frowned. "You've been saying that all week. Claire, please." "Okay." Nia stood up. "I just need some space." She walked out. She went to the bathroom and stared at herself in the mirror. She didn't recognize the girl looking back at her. The girl in the mirror wore an expensive-looking school uniform. She spoke differently. She carried herself differently. She had new friends, a new environment, a new future. But somewhere along the way, she had started believing that her old life was something she needed to escape from completely. And she didn't realize how dangerous that belief was. Then came family weekend. Every year, Hawthorne Academy invited parents and relatives to visit the campus. The school became crowded. Luxury cars filled the parking lot. Students ran toward their families. Nia watched from a distance. She had assumed her mother wouldn't come. Denise had told her she was working that weekend. So Nia didn't expect to see her. But Denise had been planning a surprise. She had requested the day off months ago. She had worked extra shifts to afford the bus ticket. She had packed Nia's favorite food. She wanted to see her daughter's face. She wanted to hug her. She wanted to tell her how proud she was. The bus arrived that morning. Denise stepped off carrying a small bag. She was tired, but she was smiling. She had no idea that her daughter had spent the past several months trying to hide the very life Denise had sacrificed everything to provide. Denise entered the school grounds. And then she saw her. Nia. Nia turned. Her heart stopped. There was her mother, standing in the middle of the school, wearing her blue work uniform, holding a paper bag. Nia stared. Denise smiled. "Baby." She started walking toward her. Nia looked around. Claire was standing beside her. Several other students were there. Nia could feel their eyes. She imagined what they were thinking. She imagined them looking at her mother. And something inside Nia panicked. Denise reached her. "I surprised you." Nia couldn't speak. "Look what I brought you." She held up the bag. "Your favorite." Nia looked at Claire, then at the other students, then back at her mother. And suddenly, all the shame she had been carrying for months came rushing to the surface. "Mom." Denise smiled. "What?" Nia took a step backward. And then she said the words that would change everything.
"I'm sorry."
"I think you have the wrong person." Silence. Denise stared at her. Nia's heart was beating so hard she could hear it. "Baby." Nia forced herself to look away. "I don't know you." Denise's face changed. The smile disappeared. The color left her face. She looked at Nia for a long moment. And then she whispered.
Oh.
She looked down at the paper bag in her hands, then back at her daughter. Okay. She turned around. Nia didn't move. Denise walked away. One step, then another. Nia watched her. Claire looked at Nia. Her face was filled with disbelief. What did you just do? Nia whispered. Don't. That was your mother. I said don't. She traveled all this way to see you. Claire, stop. Why would you do that? Nia's eyes filled with tears. Because I don't want people to think I'm like her. The words came out before Nia could stop them. Silence. Claire stared at her. Nia immediately regretted it. But it was too late. Claire quietly said, like her? Nia couldn't answer. Claire shook her head. You're right. Then she walked away. Nia stood there alone. And for the first time since arriving at Hawthorne Academy, she felt completely lost. That night, Nia called her mother. No answer. She called again. Nothing. She sent a message.
Mum, I'm sorry.
No response. The next morning, she called again. Still nothing. Days passed. Then a week. Denise didn't call. Nia tried to convince herself that her mother was angry. And maybe she had every right to be. But something about the silence frightened Nia. Then one afternoon, Nia was walking back to her dorm when her phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. Hello. A woman's voice answered. Is this Nia Carter? Yes. My name is Sandra. I'm a friend of your mother's. Nia stopped walking. Is my mom okay? There was silence. Nia's heart began racing. What happened? She's in the hospital. The world seemed to disappear around Nia. What? She collapsed at work. Nia couldn't breathe. Is she okay? She's stable. Nia closed her eyes. Can I talk to her? She's sleeping. Nia's hands began shaking. How long has she been sick? Another pause. And then the woman said something that Nia would never forget. Sweetheart, didn't she tell you? Nia's heart sank. Tell me what? Your mother has been sick for a long time. Nia felt her knees weaken. What do you mean? She's been getting treatment for months. Nia sat down on the hallway floor. Months. She didn't want you to worry. Nia couldn't speak. Her mother had been sick. For months. And Nia had been ignoring her calls. She had been embarrassed by her. She had pretended not to know her, while her mother had been fighting to stay strong. Nia rushed home that night. She spent the entire journey crying. When she reached the hospital, she ran through the corridors. She found her mother in a small room. Denise looked smaller than Nia remembered. Tired. Weak. But alive. Nia stopped at the doorway. Mom? Denise opened her eyes. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Nia walked toward the bed and collapsed beside her. I'm sorry. Denise looked at her. Nia began crying. I'm so sorry. Denise reached out, but Nia pulled her into a hug. I'm sorry, Mom. Denise held her, and for the first time in months, Nia cried like a child. I don't know what happened to me. Denise stroked her hair.
Ida.
Nia pulled away. You do. Denise nodded. You were trying to fit in. Nia shook her head. I was ashamed of you. Denise's eyes filled with tears. Nia couldn't stop. I was ashamed of where we lived. I was ashamed of your job. I was ashamed of the way you talked. I was ashamed that I wasn't like those girls. Denise listened. Nia continued. And you were sick. Her voice broke. And I didn't even know. Denise looked away. I didn't want you to worry. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted you to focus on your future. Nia stared at her. What future? The one I worked so hard to give you. Nia froze. What do you mean? Denise hesitated. And then Nia discovered the truth. The scholarship had covered most of the expenses. But not everything. The bus rides home. The school supplies. The clothes. The things Nia needed. Her mother had been paying for them, working extra shifts, taking weekend jobs, skipping meals, borrowing money, doing everything she could. Nia stared at her. Why didn't you tell me? Denise smiled weakly. Because I knew you would come home. Nia's tears fell. Of course I would. I didn't want you to give up your chance. Nia covered her face. Mom. Denise reached for her hand. I wanted you to have a life bigger than mine. Nia shook her head. Your life isn't small. Denise smiled. It is compared to yours.
No.
Nia held her hand. No,
Mom.
She looked at her. I thought I left home to become somebody. Her voice broke. But I forgot who taught me that I could become anybody at all. Denise began to cry. Nia placed her head on her mother's chest.
And they stayed that way for a long time.
When Nia returned to Hawthorne Academy, she was different. But this time, she wasn't trying to become someone else. She called her mother every day. She stopped hiding. When classmates asked about her family, she told them the truth. Her mother was a nursing assistant. She worked hard. She had raised Nia alone. And she was the strongest woman Nia knew. Some students didn't understand. Some didn't ask questions. But Nia no longer cared. She had spent too long trying to be accepted by people who had never asked her to change. And Claire? Claire was still hurt. Their friendship didn't magically return overnight. There were too many words, too much silence, too much pain. But one evening, Claire came to Nia's dorm room.
She stood in the doorway.
Nia looked up.
Eat.
Claire nodded.
Eat.
Neither spoke. Then Claire said, I owe you an apology. Nia looked surprised.
Why?
Because when your mother came, I was angry. You had every right to be. I know.
Claire sat down.
But I judged you. Nia was silent. Claire looked at her. I thought you were ashamed because you were embarrassed to be different. Nia swallowed. I was. Maybe.
Claire shook her head.
But I didn't understand that you were scared. Nia looked at her. Scared?
Yeah.
Claire smiled sadly. You were scared that if people knew where you came from, they wouldn't see you the way you wanted them to. Nia looked down. Claire continued. But Nia, the girl I became friends with, wasn't the girl with the perfect clothes or the scholarship. Nia's eyes filled with tears. Then who was she? The girl who helped me study when I was failing chemistry. Nia laughed through her tears. You're still failing chemistry. I know. They both laughed. Claire smiled. The girl who stayed up with me the night I cried because I was scared I wouldn't get into college. Nia looked at her. The girl who made me feel like I didn't have to be perfect. Claire paused. That's the girl I miss. Nia began to cry. Claire reached for her hand. She's still here. Nia squeezed her hand. I'm sorry. I know. I'm really sorry. I know. And for the first time in months, they hugged. But Nia knew something had changed. She had learned a lesson that no classroom could teach her. Success wasn't about becoming someone else. It wasn't about hiding your past. And it certainly wasn't about being accepted by people who only loved the version of you that you created for them. Success was being able to walk into any room without being ashamed of the people who helped you get there. 2 years later, Nia graduated from Hawthorne Academy. The entire school gathered for the ceremony. Students sat beside their families. Parents took photographs. Teachers smiled proudly. Nia's mother was there. She had recovered enough to attend. She was sitting in the front row. Nia stood on the stage wearing her graduation gown. She looked out at the crowd. And then she saw her mother. The woman in the simple dress. The woman who had worked night shifts. The woman who had traveled 6 hours by bus. The woman Nia once pretended not to know. Nia took a deep breath and began her speech. When I came to this school, I thought I was leaving my old life behind. The auditorium became quiet. I thought success meant becoming someone different. Nia looked at her mother. I thought I had to hide where I came from to belong here. Her voice trembled. I was wrong. Her mother began crying. Nia continued. I came here because I was smart enough to earn a scholarship.
She paused.
But I stayed because someone believed in me when I didn't even know how to believe in myself. Nia looked directly at Denise. Everyone thinks this scholarship changed my life. She smiled through her tears. But they're wrong. This scholarship didn't change my life. My mother did. The room was silent. Nia's voice became softer. She worked when she was tired. She sacrificed when she had nothing left to give. She smiled when she was scared. And when I was given the chance to become someone important, I became ashamed of the person who made it possible. Denise covered her mouth. Nia was crying now. I spent so much time trying to become someone my new world would accept that I forgot the person who taught me I belonged anywhere at all. The audience was completely silent. Then Nia said, "Mom." Denise looked up. "This diploma has my name on it." Nia smiled. "But you earned it too." The audience erupted. People stood. They applauded. Some were crying. But Nia wasn't looking at them. She was looking at her mother.
Denise stood.
And Nia walked off the stage. She crossed the entire auditorium. And when she reached her mother, she wrapped her arms around her. The same woman she once pretended not to know. The same woman she had once been ashamed of. The same woman who had given everything so her daughter could have a future. And as they held each other, Nia whispered, "Thank you for bringing me here." Her mother held her tightly. Then she whispered back, "I didn't bring you here, baby." Nia pulled away. Denise smiled. "You brought yourself." Nia shook her head.
No.
Denise touched her face. "I just made sure you had the chance." Nia smiled through her tears. And in that moment she finally understood. Leaving home hadn't made her successful. The scholarship hadn't made her successful. The prestigious school hadn't made her successful. Success was not becoming someone else. Success was becoming the best version of yourself without forgetting the people who loved you before anyone else knew your name. Nia had spent months trying to escape her past, only to discover that her past was the very thing that had carried her into the future. And the girl who once stood at the gates of Hawthorne Academy and pretended not to know her mother would spend the rest of her life making sure that woman never had to wonder again. Because Nia finally understood something. You can travel as far as the world will take you. You can walk through the doors of the greatest schools. You can sit among the richest people. You can become everything you ever dreamed of becoming. But never be so desperate to belong somewhere that you forget the people who loved you when you had nowhere else to belong.